Hi, Ben here from Trident Fly Fishing, and today we're going to be taking a look at the all-new TFO Pro III. The Pro III replaces, you guessed it, the Pro II as TFO's entry-level do-everything fly rod, and I'm really excited to go check it out. For a long time, the TFO Pro II was one of our best-selling TFO rod models. It sits just above the Signature series, which was largely made up of two-piece rods, and it's really sort of the entry into TFO's higher-performing rod series. And what I always liked about the Pro II was that it came in a huge range of sizes, so you could get the rod in a 3-weight or a 4-weight, not just a 5-weight or an 8-weight. So you could really dial in those fishing situations. And the price was also fantastic. It started out at $189, which is just great in today's fly rod market. Enter the Pro III as the Pro II's replacement, and a lot of the same things have carried over. You're still getting a huge range of models, but unfortunately, it's 2022 and inflation is here, and it does cost a bit more at about $230 than the outgoing model. But in this review, we're going to find out if in fact you're going to get some extra performance for that money, or if this rod's a dud. But before we take it out and cast it, let's look at some of the features on this new Pro III. I wanted to briefly interrupt this review to let you know that this video is supported 100% by your purchases at Trident Fly Fishing. So if you're in the market for some new tackle, check us out at tridentflyfishing.com. Starting at the bottom, we've got a double uplocking reel seat with sort of a composite insert here. Overall, it's going to be a pretty standard looking rod, and that flows into a very standard half-wells grip. Of course, you'll notice, like on many rods in this price range, it does have some foam caps here. Not really sure why rod makers do that, but must reduce costs in some way or increase the durability. One thing that I noticed when I was casting this rod is that the grip is actually a little bit nicer than I expected. You know, on a lot of entry-level rods, and maybe I just got really lucky with this particular one, you feel the gaps in the cork, but on this rod, it actually feels really smooth. It's like they did an extra good job of filling it in. Then, as you move up, you've got this super cool matte black blank and these really nice navy wraps with some silver trim. And honestly, it's a really nice looking rod. In fact, it might be the best looking of all the TFO rods. Beyond that, they give you alignment dots, which are nice to have, and pretty standard stripping and snake guides going up the rod. So now we're going to take it out in the field, give it some casts, and see how it performs. So casting the TFO Pro III at our 3 trout distances, 30, 45, and 60 feet, right away, you're going to notice that this rod does not have the same degree of feel that you're going to get with a super high performance rod. It just doesn't flex quite deep enough and give you that feedback. So while this rod is priced like a beginner rod, it's actually probably going to be a better rod for somebody that already knows how to cast, because you're not going to get the feedback that you really want as you're just starting out. With that said, it is also a fast rod. So performance in close, 30 feet, even with an MPX line, is really going to depend on the angler, and you're not going to get a whole lot of sensitivity and feel in that cast. Move it back to 45 feet, and again, I'm still feeling that sort of dampness and real true stiffness in the butt section, but performance starts to pick up a little bit, and it's totally manageable at that 45-foot distance, and I'm hitting the target with reasonable ease. That's really what you want this rod to do. Be a great trout or smallmouth rod at middle distances. And I think the Pro III does that, and it does it about as well as any other rod in this price range. Moving back to 60 feet, the faster action of this rod really starts to help out. It's fairly easy to make a long shot if you need it, and it does have some reserve performance. Now, that being said, if I were making super long casts all day long, I'd probably back down on my line to maybe something like a Rio Perception or a Rio Gold, because it's just going to give you a little bit better long distance performance. Overall, I enjoy the TFO Pro III, and although I don't spend a ton of time casting rods in the $230 price range, I felt like this was a really good entry into that area. It's priced right alongside rods like the Reddington Vice and the Gray's GR60. and just below the Orvis Clearwater. So it's actually a fairly competitive field. But where I think the TFO Pro III really fits in well is it's got great looks. TFO has an absolutely fantastic warranty, and if you break this rod, you're going to get a replacement piece way faster than you are with anybody else. Combine that with the fact that TFO makes this rod in so many models, you're going to actually be able to fish this no matter where you are in the country. Just remember that this is a fast rod, and you're probably going to want to pair it with a heavier than standard line. Now it's time for our Poseidon Score. Starting with accuracy, the TFO Pro III is fine, and it does about just as well as any of the other rods in the class, but it really starts to degrade a bit at the ends of the performance spectrum, and I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Up next are components, and the components, like the accuracy, are totally fine, and it earns a 7 out of 10. In terms of distance and power, this is definitely a fast rod and does well, but because it's not a super high performing rod, you're just not able to push this as hard as you would even some medium fast rods in the super high price range. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 for distance as well. In terms of grip, the grip was actually much nicer than I expected on this rod, and it earns an 8 out of 10. Up next is looks, and I actually think that the Pro III is a great looking fly rod. While it may not have the superior workmanship of something like a Winston or a TNT, it's going to be a super utilitarian rod that looks great, and you're going to be happy to fish, and it earns an 8 out of 10. In terms of swing weight, the Pro III is not going to be the best, but that's kind of what you'd expect at this price point. At 70 gram meters squared, it's definitely one of the heavier 9'5" weights on the market, and we're going to give it a 4.5 out of 10. In terms of value, the Pro III scores big. At $230, it's way less than a lot of other rods that have the same sort of model range. So if you're looking for, say, an 8.5-foot 4-weight, you might not find that in a lot of similarly priced rods. But here you can. And combine that, again, with that super warranty, and I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10 for value. And last but not least is the cool factor, and TFO definitely has a great following, particularly in the southern states. The Pro III replaces a hugely popular rod model, and I think it's generating some buzz, and I was definitely excited about it, and it's going to earn a 7.5 out of 10. And that brings us to a total Poseidon score of 50.5, which definitely is not going to be pushing the envelope of these scores. In fact, it's actually one of the lower scores. But when you combine that with the fact that this rod is so inexpensive, and we actually have not tested very many inexpensive fly rods, it's doing really pretty well. All in all, I wouldn't hesitate to buy this rod if you're looking for an entry-level fly rod or a rod that has some more options for the intermediate yet budget-focused angler. If you have questions about this TFO Pro III or any other rod in the TFO lineup, give us a call at 888-413-5211 or email us 24/7 at support@tridentflyfishing.com. And don't forget to tell us what you think about this video by leaving a comment in the box below. And please subscribe, because we've got a ton of great rod reviews coming out, and you're going to love them. I'm Ben. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.